Hi, I'm Dave,
And I'm Paul.
and we're going to challenge you to transform your financial future through the principles of the most profitable business in the world, banking.
We believe everyone should be involved in two businesses, the business that you're in and the banking business. Everyday people can replicate what bankers have been doing for centuries to leverage capital and build wealth through private lending.
Join us as we uncover the truths about money, expose lies and myths, and flip conventional financial advice on its head. Here we go. Hey, Paul. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Had a pretty good weekend. It was Mother's Day weekend. So
Yep.
I think this is coming out a week after that. But yeah, had baseball. So I had our first baseball tournament. Had some games on Saturday. Rain delayed. And then Sunday, everything got rained out. Every ball field in the city was closed. So we just got news, actually. So it got canceled, our championship game. But we just got news that we officially took first place in the tournament because we had the least amount of runs scored against us leading up to that game.
Okay.
So now we get a state playoff berth. So you got to win like one tournament to get a state bid. So yeah, all in all, it was a good weekend. Ended up just hanging out with the wife and visiting her folks yesterday. So pretty good. You do something special for Tammy?
Yeah, we went to an Italian place in Old Town Alexandria, which is kind of a nice place to go, albeit crowded.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
everyone had the same. Yeah, it's just a nice place. There's a
Do you
ton of
walk
nice
in and they
restaurants.
usher you to a table? They're like, "Oh, Mr. Fougere, we got a table
Yeah,
for
that's
you."
right. Like, oh, look at this guy's nose. He's one of us. That's probably not one Italian guy working there, honestly. But anyways, place called Landini's. It's right on King Street in Old Town, which is very well known for people in the DC area, and phenomenal. I mean, we usually don't go out for Italian. In this case, we had gone to this place on a food tour and loved it, so we went back and it was phenomenal.
Nice. I have not had Italian. You know what we don't have around here where I live, at least, I don't know, in the 10-mile radius or something, there's a good Italian place and a good Mexican restaurant. Like I don't know what's going on here where I live because we got everything else.
Yeah.
So it's kind of makes me realize I haven't had that kind of food in a long time. So yeah, I don't like to go out to dinner too much anyway.
Anthony's like yelling at me back here. I was like, I don't even know what you're asking. Where did I put the what?
Doesn't he know we're recording?
Yeah, that's what I was mouthing on mute there for a second.
Yeah.
Pretty funny. All right, so we got a question that came in, didn't we?
Yep. Go ahead.
So basically, the question is about how long do I have to pay premium? Do you have it pulled up? What his name was?
Oh, no. It was a YouTube comment, so just 1 second. A new comment on the Back to the Basics from Tyler J. Do you have to pay premium every year for whole life, or is there some sort of cutoff point?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And we've covered it in, episode 30?
I want to say 32 when we talked about how do you pay your premium in retirement. So we got into the fact that you don't have to pay your premium because there is, as Tyler asked, a decision point you can make. Yeah.
So it's kind of so go to that episode, Tyler, and you can hear the answer. But basically, no, you don't have to pay premium forever, but you should.
Yeah.
Meaning until you graduate. You should endeavor to do that with new money every year. And if you listen to that episode and still understand why, reach back out and we'll try to answer it better than that. But I plan on paying premium until most of mine are either paid up at 100 or paid up at 95. And I intend to pay those premiums until the day,
Right. So, and that's coming from somebody, Tyler probably maybe hasn't read the book, probably doesn't practice IBC. And that's one of those questions that comes kind of at the beginning of your education journey is, do I have to pay this forever? Because once you start learning, you realize, and the way we design policies is, we want to give you the contractual right to pay for as long as possible. So like you said, paid up at 95 or 100, even though you're not obligated to, there's other ways to let the policy pay for itself.
That's right. Tyler, there's things called non-forfeiture options that exist in whole life insurance only. You can kind of Google non-forfeiture options whole life, and you can kind of read about the different ways that you can stop or decrease or eliminate paying premium.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, I think we have a lot of military listeners, so let's do a little test, a little pop quiz for all of our military listeners. Who can name who this quote comes from? A good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. We'll give you about 3 seconds to come up with an answer. So, talking to an Army guy, as an Air Force guy, I had to memorize that quote at the academy.
That's because there probably are no good, all the good Air Force guys were former Army aviators from World War II, right? Like Curtis LeMay and Hap Arnold, and then they kind of
all the guys
Anyway.
that Robin Olds, all the guys that are buildings, and
That's right, Robin Olds.
all
That's
the
right.
statues are
Great mustache, the best mustache ever.
Funny, and some guys who've been deployed can probably relate. We had a guy, when we deployed, we all grew mustaches, right? I shaved my head and grew a mustache.
Yeah.
It was hideous. But we had a guy who had like a Tom Selleck stash. It was beautiful. But he, the group commander, when we were deployed, grounded him because his mustache was out of regs. So he took a combat pilot out of the rotation, reduced our combat effectiveness because of his mustache. That's the what has become.
When I was a lieutenant, they took flight suits away from us, and we had to wear this. And it was more practical uniform, but they're trying to make you look like everybody else. And anyway, I'm with you, man. I never understood. I could only wear it. We had Stetsons, because I was in the Cav, and you could only wear it in your squadron area. So if you left and went to the PX or something, you had to take it off. And of course, no one told me that. So I'm here, Lieutenant Fugere, walking around in the PX at Camp Humphreys, and my squadron commander's like, "What are you doing wearing that?" I'm like, "What? It's Friday." Got my spurs on and everything.
You probably wore it out to the bars, pick up the ladies in your Stetson hat.
That's right. I never understood that, the kind of killing the warrior ethos, and speaking out of both sides of our mouth when it comes to, "Oh, you guys are killers," and well, not really. Not in the PX, you're not.
You're killers, but make sure you wear your reflective belt during civil twilight and all dark hours.
That's right.
In combat, to make it an easy target for anybody trying to shoot over the fence.
Hey, why do you guys wear those in the daytime? I don't have a good answer for that.
Safety first. Anyway, we digress. We could get on a rant, couldn't we?
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, back to the quote. Did we say who it was?
No, we didn't.
Yeah. General George S. Patton.
That's right.
Yeah. A good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. How do you relate that quote to IBC?
Yeah. Well, typically, Dave, everybody we talk to that is introduced to this, they read Nelson's book, they listen to some podcasts, whatever material they get into, every single person says, including both of us, I know I said it as well, is that I wish I had started this 20 years ago, this journey to becoming my own banker. That's a very common thing to hear from somebody who's just getting started. I mean, very common.
Yeah. Yeah. I was lucky enough to be introduced to it when I was 30. But what my statement was, why didn't my dad do this for me? Because he sold insurance when I was a kid for 20 years. He had an insurance business, and never set up a policy like this for me. But maybe he didn't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. Of course, it was before the book was written, of course.
Yeah.
So it wasn't very well popularized. But yeah, so that is the number one remark that we hear from people, especially people maybe in their mid to late 40s and older.
Sure.
They're like, "Oh, I wish I would have heard about this sooner." What's cool is when you talk to people saying they're 60s, they've got kids in their 30s or 40s. So they're like, "Hey, this is perfect for my kids. I want to put policies on my adult children right now for them, and then talk to them because I want them to do policies too. So it's so what the reason we bring this up really is because there's also some people hear about it and they jump on board right away, right? Like Paul Fougere, who
That's right.
I mailed you a book a couple days later. You're like, I want to be your first client. I was like, hold on, man. I don't even have my license yet.
Yeah.
So,
I'm a fast reader.
yeah, apparently. Or maybe you just had Tammy read
quick
to you.
study.
Yeah. Yeah, you're certainly smarter than you look, man. I got to say, Paul's probably one of the, that was a compliment, I think.
Do I look stupid? Jeez.
There it is. No, you're probably, honestly, man, one of the quickest studies I've ever met. And I don't know how you do this business you crush it in this business and have the full-time Army gig at the same time. Probably talking to the world's most efficient man right here, Paul Fougere. Is that the title you want?
Yeah. I'll tell you the joke after. It's super funny too.
All right.
No, I appreciate that. Well, I know. I just, I think I knew there was a problem. I didn't know what the solution was. The book presented the solution in very simple terms that I instantly grasped.
Yeah.
So to me, it was super easy. And I'm more of a big picture guy too, right? So I didn't ask you a lot of I'm not saying there's a lot of dumb questions we get. There's not, but there's questions that don't matter. And I'd like to think, looking back, I didn't ask you questions that didn't matter.
Yeah.
Really at all.
There's questions that really don't matter because they don't have to do with the process of banking. They have to do with the questions that don't matter are really the questions about the product itself.
Correct.
So that comes secondary, like way secondary. Primary is the process of banking. So I'm sure there's people listening right now who've been listening and maybe eating up all kinds of podcasts, maybe read the books, still haven't moved forward. I had somebody reach out to me who the first time we made contact was probably 3 years ago.
It's got to be a record.
Yeah, and we've been in contact for at least a couple times a year ever since. And he's finally ready to move forward. So, what that final straw is, or that, that light bulb moment that finally clicks. I think what some people do, kind of like young people who they want to have kids someday. They're like, yeah, we'll have kids, but we're just not quite ready. So we're going to wait until, our careers are established. We got a home, we got this and that, and then we'll move forward,
Yeah.
And then they're having kids in their 40s and they're like, I wish we would have done this 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So
no doubt.
Yeah.
We see some analysis paralysis too, where we're focusing on maybe our understanding of the problem isn't as developed as it should be. And if we don't understand the problem, any solution won't matter, whether it's dividend paying whole life or something else. But if you don't know what the problem is, you're never going to know the solution.
Right. That's huge. And that's one of the biggest principles of this whole concept. But another thing we were talking about before is, I think what most, action always trumps inaction. And one of the biggest, probably the number one hindrance to action in anything is fear. So I would drill down into what is that fear that's keeping you from taking action on something that you're pretty confident already it's the right thing to do. But what is it? Is it the fear? I mean, how many people were too afraid to sign up for their company's 401k? Well, most people do that during, with HR in the first day of training. You show up and go to this big classroom with HR and they say, here's your paperwork, do it.
Yeah. And I think most of it now is automatic enrollment. You have to disenroll.
Right.
You have to opt out. Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So what makes this different? If somebody knows that, man, this sounds like the thing that I need to do, why are they so hesitant to do this when they weren't hesitant to do, say, sign up for the 401k?
Yeah. I think the psychology behind it is simple. It's they know nobody paying 20% of their income to whole life premium. Why?
Right.
Why would they know anybody doing that?
Yeah.
And that goes with, I don't know anybody doing this. Why isn't everybody doing it? Right after they understand, like, why isn't everybody doing this? That comes up as well a lot after the light bulb moment. And of course, my response is, when's the last time you saw a commercial for a dividend paying whole life insurance product?
Yeah,
from
good point.
one of those companies.
Yeah.
Almost never. You might, I don't watch television, but you might see like a Northwest commercial maybe, or a Mass.
I don't know.
You see auto insurance all the time.
New York Life, probably.
Maybe New York Life. I don't know, but I could tell you on Amazon Prime and Netflix and YouTube, we don't see any of that really. So, but that's it. They don't. It's comfortable to do the 401k or individual retirement account IRA because that term has been popularized. It's familiar.
Yeah.
It's sponsored by the government. It's got to be great.
And
right?
Nobody is going to tell you made the wrong choice, even if that thing tanks. Right? Even if you lose 30%, nobody's going to say, well, why in the world did you participate in a 401k? Are you nuts? Nobody's going to say that. But if you participate in dividend paying whole life insurance, you're probably very likely, if you ever speak about it, you're going to have somebody in your circle who says, what'd you do that for?
That's
idiot.
Right. Uncle Bob will ask that.
Yeah. Or like Dwight Schrute, idiot. What'd you do that for? I think we have an episode early on about, my friends think I'm crazy.
Yeah,
for using whole life insurance. So find that episode and we'll elaborate on that. But yeah, I think that's a lot to do with it, man. It's just, following your middle-class friends and doing what they do and seeing them stay middle class. If that's what you want to do, then do what everybody else does. Right.
Yeah. It's the very definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah. Right.
If you're doing what all the other, and I'm not, we're both middle, in DC, probably I'm middle class because you have to make like $5 million a year to be wealthy here. The cost of living is so ridiculous, but doing what everyone else is doing is generally, you need to be studying what are the banks doing? What are these other rich folks doing? Like Warren Buffett. Well, he bought an insurance company. He bought a business, right?
Yeah.
That's how people get wealthy in one way.
Yeah. And they were doing something different to begin with to become wealthy. It's not like
question.
they do those things because they're wealthy. And we're not saying doing dividend paying whole life insurance is going to make you wealthy.
Nope. What
it's going to do is create a completely different mindset and form new grooves in your brain. I believe, that's science. I think you will honestly have new neurological pathways in your brain that are developed when you start thinking differently, and stop just going along with status quo.
Yep. I've had 2 clients start businesses. One quit his W-2 job with the VA completely. Nice. Started a business doing teeth whitening in Hawaii, crushing it.
Wow.
And then naturally evangelizing IBC through that business, right? So he wants to also do IBC as an agent, and we're going to coach him through that. And then I have another nurse client that started a consulting business, and none of that is occurring with the old W-2 employee mindset. It's just not.
You're right. Yeah.
Because it took liquid capital to start this, and they were able to, access it through policy loans and do what they needed to do. So, But anyway, you're right. It totally changes, and we've said this often, but it changes the landscape of how you view things, because you have access to money you otherwise didn't have because it was locked up in a 401k or an IRA or wherever, which is still what 99% of people are doing, right? Those people aren't looking for anything else. Yeah.
That's interesting. I haven't even thought about that. Like, how many of my clients, what else has changed in their lives? Right now, I'm having several conversations with clients actually who are, a couple of them are pilots making really good money, flying for the airlines or, cargo line or something. But they're like, man, I got to figure out a way to get out of this. I'm talking to a dentist. As a dentist, they make good money, right? Especially after a few years. in practice. He's like, I got to get some passive income. I got to get out of this business.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, what people want is time.
yeah.
And you need time.
And autonomy, I think. Autonomy.
And
To make your own
autonomy,
decisions, not answer to somebody else for, hey, can I take a vacation this week?
Yeah. Oh,
right?
Gosh, I know what that's like, don't I?
Yeah, right. It's been great. I mean, I got to check my family calendar to see if I can go do this or that.
Right.
But I don't have somebody telling me. I mean, it's a different life. And I think people start to see that, and they see other people doing that, and they open their eyes to the possibility that they can do that too. And I think this is just, it's not like IBC will make you a successful business person, a business owner. Like, it doesn't do that. What it does is it gets you thinking differently to, like, there's possibilities out there that a lot of people haven't even considered. And it's all because they took that one step, the next step, took some action, put the policy in place, and then started thinking like a banker. And okay, now I got this in place. Let's figure out how to put it to work, even better.
And that was one of Nelson's main points, right? Was you should be in two businesses, right? And we say that in our intro, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Don't we? Right.
Yeah,
You should
everybody
be
probably
in
skips
whatever
forward.
business you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the banking business. And ultimately, I think by being in the banking business at the you and me level, the wheels begin to turn, and you're thinking, I could do what that person over there is doing. I could own some real estate, rental properties, for example, or I could do some real estate syndication, or I could start a business, or I could be a partner in a business, or whatever it is. I think they just start to think, yes, I could do those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So just get around those people. And here's what I told somebody else, a guy who just closed on his policy, and he went big. He went aggressive from the beginning, another pilot. And good on him, but he still wants to invest because that, he likes to invest in the market. And, he was kind of concerned that he wouldn't be able to invest in the market if he did this. Then he figured out they're not mutually exclusive. But he was just, the conversation I had to him, because he was kind of, wavering a little bit, was, hey, when you do something like this, you start to think differently. And when you start to think differently, it's kind of an unrecognized value. There's unrecognized value everywhere in every decision we make, right? You can't look at just, hey, this transaction. It's everything behind that. Like, I don't know. The unseen value.
Yep.
Right? Like the unseen value. Did I mention this on the last podcast? Did
We've
we talk
talked about the
this?
seen and the unseen.
Yeah. So the unseen value is, hey, now you're thinking like a banker and you've got capital. Your eyes are going to be open to opportunity. Your mind is going to be open to a different way of looking at things. And another thing I told him, I think this is the point I was driving at actually, was here's the problem is you don't have anybody in your circle that you deal with on a daily basis who does this. So you need to put yourself around mentors who do this through podcasts, through books, through videos, whatever it may be, or, come into our monthly webinar, which we're not doing one in May. We need to pick that back up in June. We just didn't plan one this month, but put yourself around people. Like I consider my mentors, Dale Carnegie is a mentor. Zig Ziglar is a mentor. Like, I've never met those guys in person. Of course, Dale Carnegie, I don't know when he died, but
can you remind people who that is? And what
the guy who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, probably one of the best books on emotional intelligence.
I read that book when I was 14
for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, I've read it multiple times.
Copy too.
Yeah, it should be mandatory reading for every middle schooler or high schooler at least.
Now they're reading Pool Boy and whatever.
Yeah, Call Me Jill. I don't know. Yeah, it's ridiculous, but anyway. But you got to put yourself around
a couple of subscribers.
Sorry, leave a 1-star review. Go ahead. But you got to put yourself around people who are doing this because you're swimming upstream. And
you've got a headwind financially and you're swimming upstream. Neither of those is an ideal condition. You need a tailwind and you need, to swim downstream and go link with those. There are There are real estate meetups in your local area. There are people doing IBC where you live. I guarantee it. Those are the people you need to be around. And an IBC group especially is just a great group of people. Really, really smart. And most IBC people are doing something cool, or they know somebody who's doing something really cool. That might be something that you're interested in. So,
yeah, I'd say the vast majority of my clients have a side hustle of some sort, whether they had it before or they started it after. They've got something in addition to just their W-2.
Yeah,
that they're pursuing.
And nowadays, you need to.
Yeah, honestly, you do, because there's really no safety in that W-2.
Yeah, that and the value of the dollar has gone down just in real estate, right? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and wages aren't keeping up with the inflation. So,
right,
yeah. So, all right, man. I think that's pretty good. Maybe we'll be back with another quote next week for another pop quiz.
Yeah. So
we'll find a good Air Force.
Just to summarize, if you've been listening to us for the past year and change, I don't know how many episodes we have now, 60 something?
60 plus. Yeah.
Yeah. And you haven't reached out, or maybe you reached out to somebody else, and that's great too. But if you haven't reached out and you might be wasting your time, because we have said everything I think that can be said about why one would want to do infinite banking, why someone would want to own dividend-paying whole life insurance and pay adequate premium relative to their income to become their own banker at the you and me level. There are, and I always direct people to other resources of things that I have found helpful, including your 4-minute and 20-second video, or 4:35, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But lesson learned, take action. You're going to, 20 years from now, you don't know this, but you're going to thank yourself. You really will. I can't illustrate that on a piece of paper. You have to catch that. You have to know that. But I can't really teach that to you.
Yeah. And you'll be able to look back and see, man, where did all these different changes start to come from? What was the first step I took to all these other things that, this is a springboard to so many other things. So,
yeah. And in the end, Dave, all we're really doing is changing the sequence of where your money goes.
Yeah. Good point.
That's it.
Right on. Well, and it all comes down to control. So, hey, until next time, control your capital.
Or somebody else will.
Hey, thanks for listening, everybody. If you'd like to have a conversation with us to see how you can become your own banker, or if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to tackle on a future episode, please send us an email to davidandpaul@theibcguys.com.
And subscribe and leave us a review if you're on Apple. Follow and leave us a 5-star review if you're on Spotify. And please share this with your friends. We'll see you next week.